love is the answer, love is the answer, love is the way. Love, love, love is the answer, love is the answer, love is the way.
Wonderful. You may be seated. Well, you are in for a treat this morning because I've known Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett for a long time. And there's something special about having a connection that weaves through our lives in so many different settings and still coming together and learning more and appreciating more about who and what we are. Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett is kind of a retired minister who's not retired at all. She's a writer. She's a teacher. She was the senior minister at Unity of San Antonio for many years. And she also worked at Silent Unity and brought forth great advances in that ministry. So she came here to train our chaplains. We had a prayer chaplain retreat up at the wonderful homes of Katie Riggs along the river. It was heaven, absolutely heaven. So your prayer chaplains are equipped with a revitalization of that prayer energy. So avail yourself to prayer chaplains because let them do their stuff. It's so wonderful. So with no more talk from me, let's invite our Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett up to speak.
Thank you, brother. Oh, good morning. Hey, is everybody able to stay toasty in this little dip of winter? It's not my favorite. I like living in a bathing suit. How about you? That's like my preference always. Yeah. Oh, friends, what a beautiful light it is for me to share some thoughts with you this morning. Boy, I've been on quite a journey of healing. How many of you have had times of healing in your life? If you don't raise your hand, you're lying. I'm just telling you, come on. Really, healing is a theme, right? It's a theme of unity. It's certainly the theme of unity prayer. But, to set us off with this message, I want to tell you about when Giles and I, my husband Giles, we've been married for 47 years now. We moved intentionally for the first time. We relocated to Florida during the pandemic. When I was vice president of Silent Unity, we sent all the workers to work from home, right? I didn't even need to sit in an office there. So it was an opportunity for us to enter into the early retirement. My husband retired, and I was just longing to be back in the sunshine and on the coast. So we had a big room that we wanted to make a second guest room and a TV room. So we did what millions of other people do, and I had to, my heart races when I do this. Enter IKEA. How about you? My heart races. I'm like the maze of IKEA, and the gajillion pieces and parts involved is just terrifying to me. I'm just saying it. So we found, and the reason we went there is because we had slept on my brother's pull-out sofa from IKEA, and it was a perfect solution. Anyway, we got the item delivered, not assembled, and Giles and I set upon the task. 24 pages of instructions, and not a gajillion parts, but enough, right? And I lined up all the parts, I did all the thing, and Giles was following the steps as I was instructing him page by page. We did really well. We got up to page 10 or 11, and it wasn't working. We couldn't get that part the way it was supposed to be. So I said, hold on, let's go back and check it out. And sure enough, when we went back, we found the previous part he had put on upside down. And you know as well as I do that if you didn't fix that, if you didn't turn it right side up, if you left it upside down, eventually the finished product is going to look nothing like the picture on the cover, correct? It's not going to work. So you have to write it. And the metaphysician that I am made the decision that I wanted to pay attention to that concept of upside down and right side up. And it just so happened that my daughter and I were writing my third book, This Life is Yours. And I was contemplating this idea that we have a lot of upside down concepts. The culture has given us upside down thoughts. And the number one upside down thought in humanity is this, in my opinion: I'm only human. Have you been there? Have you said it maybe sometime? I'm only human, you know. To me, it's the greatest upside down thought. And, you know, religion sort of has backed that up. Traditional religion has backed that up. Gives us the message that we're fallen, that humans are fallen and broken. Right? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that? Many of us grew up with that idea. And what do we think about ourselves when that's the upside down thought that we've been harboring about ourselves, right? I'm only human. I'm basically weak and helpless, you know? Now, we don't think like that here in a Unity church. I understand. Or do we? Or do we have that default in the background that comes out in times of stress or troubles? You know, I'm well aware of that in me, you know, as much as I've studied and grown and learned. So, you know, when Alicia and I were writing this book about healing, we were confronted with the messaging that's running in the background that says something could be missing, wrong, or broken about me. Just take that in. Notice where that has reared its head, you know, in your awareness. Now, my daughter Alicia was raised in Unity. She was a Unity kid, went all through youth ministry, up through YOU. She has this inside of her, right? But she saw it too because she was in the world around her. She grew up with friends and families in our neighborhoods that subscribed to this idea, and you know, it gets inside of us. But it's not just other people and religion. Our whole culture is filled with this idea. It shows up, you know, it shows up. Of course, religion says it's so bad that we were actually born sinful. Come on, look at that infant. Do you know anybody who's ever looked at an infant and said, "Oh, you little sinner, you little sinner"? Come on. All we see is brilliance. We see beauty. We see light, don't we? We see perfection in a newborn. Of course we do. But that message is there. But our systems support it too. Western medicine, you know, we can't get coverage until something goes really wrong. You know, and in fact, it's the doctor's job to find something wrong. They feel like they don't succeed unless they probe and probe until they find that thing that they can point to. You know, and that's their job. I get that. But it is what Western medicine, but not all cultures do that. You know, Eastern medicine, the success is keeping us well. The success is the preventative measures to have us be able to remain healthy rather than wait till something happens, you see. Our penal system, too, I don't have to tell you. You know, we're in a culture. What if we were in a culture that gathered, and you know, I've heard this. I don't know if there's a real culture that does this or this is just a story, but I've read it, maybe you have, of a culture that, you know, when someone has offended the community in some way, they invite that person into the center of their communal space. And instead of punishing them, they remind them of what they know about them, the truth about them. They remind them. They sing their song, so to speak. They help them to come to see themselves not in an isolated way, but as a member of a community, as one in community. And they're invited then to offer some kind of amends, right? They offer themselves some service to the community to step back into that awareness. Wow, that doesn't happen in the Western penal system at all, does it? Whew. Upside down. We're only human. How many of you have had experiences, and chances are that's why you're here in a unity community anyway. You've had some transcendent moments in life where you've seen beyond the only human. Have you not? Have you not? In your meditation, maybe sitting at the banks of the Guadalupe, you've had those moments of transcendent awareness where you experienced yourself not separate and isolated, but as a part of the landscape, as part of the flow of the river. And the sun isn't just beaming on you, it is what you are, right? So we know better. But boy, that humanity of us really likes the familiarity of our sense of separation, our sense of ourselves as only human, upside down thoughts. Now, I know we all have moments like that, but harboring that idea of only human over and over and over again, living into that and making that really a truthiness in our life, right? It has consequences. Number one, it lowers our own vibration. It lowers our own health, because the feel-good chemicals that are naturally proliferating in our body get stifled by that message, you see, and it contributes to all kinds of challenges, even in our physical bodies, right? That mindset of insufficiency, I'll never be enough, I'm only human, I don't expect so much. I mean, all that is so denigrating to the truth of us. It's so not a support. And unfortunately, what also happens is we perpetuate that idea and we hand it to the next generation. Not because we want to, it's because that's the message we understand. That's what we've been told. And we pass it along without even thinking about it. That's how we got it, right? That's how I got that message. It was given to me. It was passed down to me. Not willfully, but by not knowing any different. Well, we know different, don't we? And of course, the other thing, and this is what troubles me, but this is what leads to the kind of religiosity that we can see in the world, is I start calling out for a savior. Because that's what happens, because I feel helpless when I feel only human, right? I feel powerless in my life, and that's why I say I need a savior. And that's why I look for some external deity to come and save me and redeem me. All the themes of religiosity. Does this make sense to you? So this is just to recap for us, how we got to this place in our culture. This is what has happened. But what kind of God must we believe in that would require humans to remain weak? That's not a God I want to give any credit to, right? That's not a God I want to even recognize, you see? It cannot be the nature of God, period. Just cannot be the whole story. Because we make up this story, and even the scripture verses can tell you this, especially the Hebrew scriptures of old, that God will give us troubles so that God can save us, so that, it's important for humans to be weak so that God can be strong. Poppycock! Come on. Cannot be, right? We don't need that kind of God. In unity, we could be instead proving the healing principles. Do you agree? That's our path. So this is the right side up thought. You are divine. You are not only human. You are divine. You are human. You're 100% human. And at the very same time, you're 100% divine. You can't pull them apart, even though, boy, can we try. My human can can really try, right? Can try to pretend as though this is all there is, this is all I am. But it never is real, right? Because I am all that. That's what wholeness is. That's what oneness is. Human and divine, all at the same time. All at the same time. There's all of that is what I am. So take a breath around that. And another way to say it, if you're not very religious-minded, because I don't use the word divine or God all the time myself, 100% physical, right? We are in a physical form, and 100% spiritual. If that lands more softly for you, that is the same truth. 100% human and 100% divine, 100% physical, 100% spiritual. All at the same time. I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard before, but sometimes you hear it in a different way, and it can really catch your attention, right? So what does it mean to me to be fully human and fully divine, fully physical, fully spiritual? It means when I reach the end of my human capacity, I just know there's more than this. There's more about me than this. I am greater than this. This is how we heal, right? It's a freeing teaching because for me, it tells me I can spill out beyond the perception of myself as a limited, isolated human when I say, there is more to me than this. Let me access that more. Let me enter into that more. And this is how we heal. I claim the principle of wholeness. I intend to recognize that I am human and divine, holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, holy, and H-O-L-Y, holy. Yeah. Right? And so the work of healing is to claim the principle. And wholeness or oneness is the prime principle in unity, but all the other principles flow out of that. The 12 powers that are all your interior capacities, innate capacities, are all the principles. And so healing, in my vernacular, is learning about, internalizing, agreeing with, and embodying the principle. And when I do that, when I come into the state of realization of that principle, I heal. How about you? Yeah. So for me, healing is reclaiming my full humanity and divinity. I never set my humanity off to the side. I never disrespect my own feelings and experience. Because this is not what wholeness is, right? Is saying, oh, I'm just going to slap a Band-Aid of truth on this thing and forget that I have something going on humanly. No, I deal with my humanity and I attend to my human circumstances in a human way, right? I go to the doctor if I have a need for a doctor. I take care of my physical body by exercising and the things that I choose to do about that. You see, I do all those things in the physical sense, and I do not neglect my spirit. How many times have we devoted so much time and attention to dealing with the illness process and all that it requires of us? And some of us, it's very consuming, I understand. But what would it be like if I were to devote equal amount of time to spiritual life, to spiritual practice, specifically to recognize and live into the principle of wholeness, of well-being, of strength, of faith, whatever it is I want to practice? Can you feel the connection of how this allows you in a whole way to attend to your life? Okay, is this good? Is this juicy for you? All right. For me, the best way I think about this, and I think about this with Unity's prayer flow, because this is the prayer flow, those of you who are with me this weekend, this is the prayer flow. being able to tell your human self about your spiritual self. I mean, that's really the key to healing. Because healing doesn't happen first in the body, right? Or in our circumstances. Healing is a spiritual matter. So instead of clinging to a God outside that's going to do the work for me, instead of looking for a rescuer, savior, instead of that, healing is realizing I cannot separate myself into pieces and parts. I am not, after all, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? I'm not pieces and parts. Wholeness is my nature, and let me find the ways that I can practice living in wholeness, living that wholeness. I don't have to come back to wholeness. I don't have to get wholeness. It's already what I am. It's the realization of it that is the healing. Have you had that experience yourself? Please say yes. So I heal when I claim and live by the principle. Charles Fillmore said, God is principle. He said, accessible, just like air is to our body, just like the principle of mathematics that works for everyone the same way. And Myrtle Fillmore inserted, we're not talking about a cold-hearted principle like mathematics. Spiritually, we're talking about the life principle, the love principle, the strength principle. Are you with me in that? Do you hear that refrain? That is God. It is the way to describe the nature of the divine. And so, the whole practice is, how do I organize my day-to-day in such a way that I optimize my spiritual practice, that I live in the state of opening and receptivity, of curiosity about that invisible yet absolutely real aspect of being. Right? It's sort of like the teacher standing in front of a noisy classroom, and the teacher's just waiting. When the students calm down, we're ready, right? When the students are quiet, silent, and receptive, now we can begin. And that's what happens spiritually in our practice too. And I know so much of our practice is about just getting to that state of receptivity. How about for you? Because I fly in and out, in and out, in and out, because the human is very, naughty. The human is just, bouncing around. To calm my human brain and to be in a state of receptivity and opening. There it is. There it is. So how do you do this? To claim divine life during time of illness process or symptoms, something like that. I had a beautiful friend in San Antonio. He was actually a member of my board. He was diagnosed as a pretty young man in his 30s with multiple sclerosis. He had 2 young boys at home, and he had been working in a job. He was taking care of the family, and he ended up having to medically retire in his 30s. And his big concern, of course, was, how am I going to be able to provide for my family and take care of myself? And he was scared, frankly, because he was having scary symptoms that he couldn't control. So we worked together over a couple of years of him. He was just so courageous. We would sit and pray together and talk about what his approach might be. And so he practiced this approach of saying, multiple sclerosis is not what I am. I'm not going to claim it as my disease, but I'm not going to ignore what I have to deal with medically, physically either. And so he worked on how to work with his own mind, because when things would happen, when he would have symptoms, it would be frightening to him, and he would have to work toward, like, what do I do with this now? So he got into a practice like this. I'll just read it from my book, because he's featured in This Life Is Yours. His story is remarkable. He thought about the nature of wholeness. Now, if you studied Myrtle Fillmore, you probably have heard her story of healing. I thought about life. I thought about what life means. That's what he did. I thought about the nature and the truth of wholeness, the fullness of life, and what well-being could be for me. And he studied that principle. He realized the principle of wholeness because this is what he did. When he would wake up in the morning, he would kind of just sense his physical body, and he would wiggle his fingers and toes. He would, put his feet outside of the bed. If he could stand up and walk, he would proceed. But there were days where that wasn't working, right? His body wasn't functioning in that way. And so he built a practice of saying, just because I have to spend the day in bed doesn't mean I'm lifeless. It doesn't mean I'm not whole. What can I do with those hours? So he got into the habit of, doing some spiritual reading and even reading that just makes him laugh, right? Humorous reading. He got into the habit of turning his mind toward each of his loved ones and praying for them, just thinking about their well-being, and instead of sitting in the question of, oh my gosh, I can't get up, I can't clean the house, I can't take care of my boys today, what are they going to think? Are they going to grow up without, you know what goes on here between the ears? And he disciplined himself to be accountable for thoughts that would help him to stay in the truth of wholeness and still live fully. And today he continues that journey. And every once in a while he gets knocked down by this disease process and ends up in hospital or needing to recover, this kind of thing. But he gets back up. He gets back up and continues to live in the fullness of life. This is it. We're not always going to see the miracle of like everything just zaps back into place and that curing of a condition. We're not always going to experience that as the healing, but healing is a spiritual matter. It's a matter of knowing what I am, regardless of my human condition. Can you feel that for yourself? You tell yourself that. To claim divine life when you're experiencing physical death is another thing that my precious father taught me. He lived so fully. And for the last 7 years of his life, he was in a wheelchair full time and had no use of his legs. He had a brilliant mind, and he was creative. He was a stained glass artist who made like 300 stained glass pieces in his bathroom in the assisted living apartment in a shower stall. He would wheel up to the shower stall and he'd make magnificent works of art in there. Every day he did that. Why? To give them to his neighbors. He made them for people. He never sold a piece. He was 94, finished his final piece 3 days before he laid down and let go of his body. He was determined, and my sister had to hold his shaking hand because he had those hot welders. He burned himself on that welder, and she was helping him hold steady so he could finish that piece to give to his neighbor before he got into bed and let go. What a model. Live until you die. And live fully, live well, no matter your conditions. Look, he couldn't do a lot of things, but he could do that. Yeah. How about to claim divine love when you're experiencing fractured relationships? I don't know of a person that hasn't at one time or another had fractured relationship, had strain, had something going on. Just imagine, just have an awareness right now of someone in your life that maybe they're not, you've heard this phrase, maybe they haven't been safe on the streets of your own mind. Maybe you've kicked them out of your kingdom. Come on, we do it. That's the human. The human can do that, right? And what about this decision to instead embody harmony, right? And where does that start? I'm not forcing harmony on you. It's all happening here. Let me be a harmonious presence. Let me harmonize my thoughts and stop the snarky judgments. Stop the condemnation in my thoughts about you. Let me take responsibility for the harmonious power of love. Let me embody it within myself. And when I do that, I become a beaming light of love. And whether or not that person recognizes it and we can restart a connection, a relationship, doesn't matter, because I am whole in divine love and I'm available. Right? You feeling that? Yeah, make that personal to you. So, here's the work. Jesus never said, let me heal you. He didn't say, let me heal you. People said, I was healed, right? Jesus stood in the full knowledge of his human divine identity. He was fully human, standing physically in the space, but he knew he was the light of the world. He knew his identity was divine. And in his presence, people came and asked him to heal them, and he said to them, you are whole. Now he said, the translation of it in most things is, you are made whole. And people think that's Jesus did something to make them whole. No. Jesus was saying, wholeness is what you're made of. You are wholeness itself. And in his presence, standing in the fullness of wholeness and oneness himself, people could see themselves, sometimes for the first time, get a glimpse of that reality for themselves. And they took it and they healed because they internalized that understanding. Does this make sense to you? So Jesus said, take up your bed and walk. Just think about that. Take up your bed. Oh, Owen and I had a laugh earlier because he asked me the message title. I said, take up your bed. And I said, it is he said, the bed's heavy. And I said, it's a metaphor. He said, take up your metaphor. I love it. So yes, take up your bed. What does that mean? It means, this bed has been a crutch. This bed has been all along. I'm just laying there waiting. The people at the pool of Bethesda, waiting. I'm just waiting for somebody to heal me, kind of thing. And Jesus is like, take that and get moving. And it's just interesting to me that I didn't think about this until this morning when I was contemplating being here with you. I was thinking, okay, to take up the bed, but the bed is going with me. If I take it and carry it, it's going with me. And this is, for me, a reminder that the human brain can continue to feel helpless. Have you noticed that it likes to come back, right? There's a default of that, I can't do it myself, I'm not whole, I'm broken, something's wrong, something's missing. There's a default of that. And to expect that human brain will stop that reverie is kind of foolish, because it's part of the role of a brain. It's part of how the brain operates, with fear for our safety, right? Want us to be okay. But so just to take that is the reminder that I might still have resurgences of that feeling of, I'm helpless, I can't do this, I'm not okay, but I'm walking forward. Take up your bed and walk. Walk. You are whole. You are whole. Oh, see, this excites me. This excites me. So, all this to say, unity friends, the power of healing is in your hands. Is it not? It's in your hands. Yeah. It's not God is doing this through me even. You're not a hollow flute. You're wholeness itself. You are wholeness. It's your nature. And so when something's going on, you can still be the light of the world. You can still be the light of the world. Take up your bed and walk. Get going. Prove that principle in your own life. And what we're going to practice this afternoon, those of you who stay with me, is how can I do this? How can I take hold of the principle, put it to work in my life? How can I restart or regenerate my practice or begin for the first time, perhaps, a practice where I can do this, where I can heal something that has been either long-standing or very deeply wanted for myself, How can I do that? Alicia and I developed an alphabet, like A to Z, a set of practices that can be done in 15-minute increments. And our understanding is that dedicating myself to 15 minutes, there's a whole bunch of other minutes in a 24-hour cycle, right? 15 minutes a day to a very particular practice for the purpose of experiencing and embodying the principle that I am healing by means of, right? That doing that regularly, every day, changes my biochemistry. And so it's not a surprise then when I start to feel better, when I start to really own the fullness of life for myself. It's not a surprise at all because I have practiced. I have put myself in that state for healing purposes. So friends, here it is in the simplicity of it. H, to hold the principle in mind. H. E, H-E, to embody that principle. Make sure that I know that it's mine, right? It's not happening outside of me. A, to be accountable for aligning my actions with that principle. In other words, practicing that principle. And L, to live as a full embodiment of that principle. To live fully, right? H-E-A-L, hold the principle, embody the principle, be accountable for my actions regarding that principle, and live fully as that principle in my life. This is the way we heal. Are you with me? I'm so very grateful for each one of you, because what I know is that you are whole, even at times when you don't feel like it, because the human doesn't feel like it all the time. The human says something's missing, wrong, or broken. The spiritual me knows better. And it's not like something isn't happening and I'm going to pretend that it's not happening. It's not that. It's that it's not the end of the story. That human condition I'm dealing with is just not the whole of me. It's not all that is, you see. Let me lean into my spiritual nature and let my divine identity lead the way into my human experience. It's gentle and precious. And it's true even when times are tough and when your opinion of yourself might be at a low point. To take up your bed and walk is to say to your frailties, nevertheless, I will turn to my divinity and lead my life from my divinity today. My greater nature knows the way. And so does yours. All right, friends.
Put a little love in your heart.